Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 446.
For the rest of your life.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Brian takes us to Cloud 9. Jeff tells us how to beat a Go champion, and our psychology segment asks, are you really addicted to board gaming? Plus, tales of rage, amazement, and hilarity. A new historical segment, and we all answer the age-old question, what one game could you play for the rest of your life? I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Bill Murray of board gaming, Tom Vassell.
Now, I'm not opposed to being called this, but why?
Well, because he was living the same day over and over for the rest of his life.
And and this episode may be posted in February, which would make this kind of relevant.
Yeah, sort of. We already had plans on Groundhog Day, and people are like, you should do this for the Groundhog Day episode. Like, well, no, we have that episode figured out already, so.
Bum, 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 bum. Da, 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 na, na, na. All right.
Yep.
Folks, my name is Tom Vassell.
Hello, I'm Eric Summerer.
We're here to talk about board games. Now, interestingly enough, I rearranged every board game in my house.
Oh.
Now, I did not mean for this to happen. What I was planning to do was, I was like, I got an idea. I had some free time on Saturday. I'm going to switch a couple games to my shelves just to mess with OCD people who watch my videos.
That's hilarious.
It is. So I pulled a couple games off, and I was like, oh, it's dusty here. Let me pull all the games off the shelf. So I did, and I dusted it down. And I was like, alrighty, well, let me just dust another shelf. Pretty soon, I had pulled all the games off the shelves.
Wow.
And then I was like, let's put them back. And in the meantime, I got rid of 10 more games.
Wow.
Yeah. I now have like 3 empty shelves, maybe 4 empty shelves here that have space now. So if I decide to keep some games, I actually don't have to get rid of any.
Okay.
However, I was looking in my closet at all the games, and while there's some good ones that I'm reviewing in the upcoming future, I'm actually not keeping any of them. But that's because we're kind of in that period of time. There's one I'm considering keeping, but I'm considering it so strongly that it's like going to Arcane Wonders for testing for Dice Tower Essentials. So there's that. How's that for?
That's a tease.
Tease about nothing. Someday I'll go back. Remember episode 446? Yeah. So that's good. I am now up to 26 boxes of games for Dice Tower Con.
For the flea market.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
I believe we calculated out, we think it's around 500 games.
Exciting. Oh, my goodness.
So I'm getting rid of more games than Eric owns.
Yeah, that's about right.
Incidentally, I bought the Guinness Book of World Record for my kids, and I was looking at them like, wow. I mean, really? If I didn't get rid of games, in 2 years, I would have that many. Someone needs to challenge that.
Somebody, yeah. Well, we've discussed this. The problem is that, whoever could, and a lot of people could probably challenge that, but then they know someone who has more. Yeah,
I know, but it still needs to be done. Okay, well, let's talk about some games. So I will start with a game called Steamworks.
Okay.
This is from Tasty Minstrel, and this is a game about building machines. And you have these different people. You're like a character who builds machines, and you're going to be putting down different engines, like steam engines and electric engines, and then you're going to be attaching things to them, and then you'll run these machines, and you're basically making things that get you victory points somehow, some way. You get money. You could run someone else's machine, and if someone else runs your machine, you get victory points, and you're slowly adding to these machines. And it's really an interesting, entertaining game, but the first third of it's really boring. In fact, I was like, I don't like this game at all. these machines are boring. I run this machine. Ooh, I got a tile. I run this machine. And then suddenly I was like, wait a minute. That machine is cool. Wow. Woo. Look at that machine run. Yeah. And it got much more interesting as the game progressed. I don't know if I feel like slogging through that first third, though, to get to the really fun part. I mean, I think the game should have some ramping up of fun. Like, yeah, these are really cool. The machines are getting better and better. But they should start out by being a little interesting, I think. But they're really kind of, the beginning, it's just like, all right, whatever. I'll draw a tile. I'll do this. But once you get through that, I thought Steamworks was a lot of fun. Have you played this one, Eric?
No.
I think you would like it.
Okay. So recently, Through the Ages has been updated, and Through the Ages is one of my favorite games. I really, really like this game, and the new edition is called A New Tale of Civilization, and they took a whole bunch of the cards and sort of reworked them and added some rule tweaks and some changes to the turn order and that sort of thing. And even though I was interested in finding out what changes these were, it wasn't enough for me to seek out a copy of the new edition. However, the Board Gaming-Online site has implemented these new rules. And so Jeff Engelstein and one of our friends, Ray, has invited me in to play a game. And I don't know how the game is going to turn out because we're still in the middle of it. But it is an interesting set of changes. If you are familiar with the game, one of the biggest changes is that there's this concept of corruption. And if you use too many of your little blue tokens, if you haven't upgraded your civilization well enough, if you're not doing things efficiently, you use too many of these blue tokens, and you have to start giving a whole bunch of them back because you've crossed a threshold and you're not able to get rid of things and keep things churning as quickly as you want. And in the original version, you would calculate this after you did everything. So you take your whole turn, you do all this, and then you'd go, oh no. Oh, I ran into corruption. And if that's something you really didn't want to do, then you're like, well, okay, I got to dial everything back. I got to recalculate this thing. No. So the big change is that this is calculated at the beginning of your turn. And then if you are in a corruption state, you have that turn to fix it. And that's a huge change. You see what's coming, you know that you're in trouble if you don't do something to fix it and avoid that corruption. And you can do that. You can spend your actions to make sure that doesn't happen, and then you'll get new resources, and you may be in that situation again for your next turn, but you know you're there and can deal with it. I can't speak to the individual tweaks of the different cards. Many of the cards have changed, but the one other change I like is that there's these tactics cards for the military. And one of the nasty aspects of the original version is if you didn't get a tactics card that matched the military you were building, if you never saw that, then you were in serious trouble. Because other players may be able to get a tactic that really works for them, that they've been able to build towards since the beginning of the game. This new version allows you to use other people's tactics. If a tactic card is on the table, you can spend a little bit more of your political actions, but you then get to get the same tactic that somebody else is doing because it's now like a known technology, a known military tactic, and you can use it, thereby evening the field just a little bit more. Who knows if I will win? I probably won't, but I am certainly enjoying the tweaks in Through the Ages, A New Tale of Civilization, almost enough to start seeking out that new edition of the game. I liked it. I still do.
I'm very intrigued to try this game out because I think I said this a couple weeks ago. Like I was looking forward to playing it, and it got put off. So it's just one of those games that takes some time. I want to play it in person. I have it. I'm very excited about trying it out. Gruff. Now, Gruff is a box that if you look at it, you don't know it's called Gruff because it basically just shows a picture of a treasure chest with like a mouth on it. It's a 2-player card game in which you control some guy who's a Gruff, and then this Gruff has 3 monsters that are allowing you to play cards that do different things. It's really kind of a weird Magic the Gathering style game. And the rules are really simple and actually don't tell you how to play the game, but you can kind of infer how to play it from them. But it's not a very well-written rule book. But Gruff has some intriguing ideas because each of these 3 guys you have can attack the person in front of them, and they can hurt them and do damage to them, but you can also switch spots with somebody else, and they can also generate weirdness for you, which lets you play cards. The problem is the game has a little bit of fiddliness because each of these cards has those little movable plastic markers you stick on the card to keep track of their health and stuff, and it's on all 4 cards on your side as you're constantly moving these around. It's okay. The art is amazing. Really good artwork. The idea, cool idea. The implementation, little fiddly, and the rule book, boo. So it's a neat idea. I want to like it more. I bet if they ever make Gruff 2nd edition, I'll approve it. But for now, probably a pass.
Okay. Hocus is a fantasy-themed, magic-themed poker variant. And Tom, you talked about a poker variant last week. This one, I kind of liked this one. In Hocus, you are trying to be the first to get 25 points. And you do this by winning various poker hands, Texas Hold'em style. But there are 2 different rivers. They call them the community cards. So on your turn, you've got a hand of a bunch of cards. And you have what they call basic spells, basic actions that you can perform. You could lay a card down into the center, a community card, but there are at least 2 different community rows. If you have more players, there may be 3. You can play a card face down, which adds it to the pot of a particular row, a particular community. And that's essentially saying, I think I might win this one, so I'm going to start putting points in that row. Each card has a certain point value. In fact, some of them, there's one suit that if you acquire them as a pot card, it's now an action, a special spell that you can play in the next round, which is interesting. You can also play cards into your pocket, which is the cards that only you get to use in making poker hands. And you have 1 pocket for each of the rows, and you don't actually have to assign these until the showdown at the very end. So you will spend these turns doing these actions. You also, each player at the very beginning of the game, drafts a series of personal special spells, advanced spells that they can do that allows you to manipulate the cards, add extra things to the pot, take your pocket cards and add them into the pot of something, draw more cards, that sort of thing. You do 1 spell each turn, maybe spend one of these owls, the 1 suit that's a special power, and then once each community has 4 cards in it, you then do the showdown, and going in turn order, you will assign your pocket cards to the center, and hopefully win in a basic poker showdown style. Whoever wins gets the pot cards. They'll score points, acquire any of the owl suit cards that they won, and then you do it all over. After you've assigned all of the pots. I was a little worried about it at first, and in the first couple of rounds before we got the flow of it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but it actually is pretty interesting because you've got this hand of cards, and if you have a good hand in your hand, you then need to manipulate the cards that are on the table in order to get those cards to match your preferred hand onto the table and into your pocket, and you want to do it quickly enough that other players don't mess with your plans, but you also don't want to go so fast that all of the communities get locked down before you can put point cards into the pots. And so you have to sort of slow play it a little bit, but you still need to do the actions you want to do before the round is over. And that was an interesting push-pull. I liked it. There are some of the advanced spells that mess with the cards in the center a little too much. They actually refer to them as advanced and that you shouldn't play with them right away. I think I would personally want to avoid doing it at all and keep it a little more pure. But having those different powers, different strengths and play styles based on the spells you've drafted, it's interesting. And I wouldn't mind playing some more. Hocus, I liked it.
I've been looking at it while you've been talking about it here. Because I got a copy, but I haven't played it yet. And I have to say that the art/graphic design is very clean.
Yeah.
It's a good-looking game. So I have high hopes now that Eric has given it like a 10.
But I didn't say 10.
I know.
I think it succeeds for what it's doing. I mean, it's a poker variant, but, it reminds me of, what was the Serlin Games one, the Panda one?
Pedante.
Yes. That's a poker variant, too, but that one just seemed awkward and odd and strange. This one flowed, and especially if you're familiar with the poker hands, and trying to go for those different combinations, I think this would succeed as a variant. I like it.
All right. Well, let's talk about Trap.
It's a trap.
With an exclamation point. There's 2 versions, Zany Zombies and Nimble Ninjas. And this from IDW, I would imagine that they are going to be releasing many, many versions of this, depending on how well it sells. And yet, I know it's out in stores. And yet, when I went to Board Game Geek, I see 1 comment and only a few ratings.
Huh.
So I don't know if gamers are just avoiding it because it doesn't look good. The ratings currently are 7, 6.5, 4, and 2 1s.
Oh.
Trap is a game in which you are trying to capture monsters or ninjas, whatever you're playing, zombies or ninjas. And they're marked from 1 to 6. And so on your turn, you have 3 cards face down in front of you. You pick one of those and play it. Some are special cards. Most are traps. When you have a trap, you pick an opponent's card. You play the trap on there. If it's a trap, if their card's a trap, you discard them both, whatever. If it's one of those monsters, though, you have a chance to capture that monster. You roll a die. If the die is equal to that monster's number or higher, you have captured it, which, as you can see, makes the 6 hard to capture. When you capture a monster, it goes away, unless it's the first round of the game, in which case, if it's the number 1, you've caught the number 1, hooray! And the second round of the game, you're trying to capture the number 2, etc. However, when you capture a monster, you may not get to keep it, because then everyone flips over the 3 cards in front of them, and if they have any numbers in front of them, whoever has the highest numbers gets that monster instead of you.
Whoa.
So you're trying to trap a monster while at the same time having the highest numbers in the 3 cards in front of you.
Huh.
It's okay. I tried it by itself. I mixed them both together. We tried that. The kids thought it was fun, but it's pretty lame. You're just like, I'll play a trap on that card. Nothing. I'll play a trap on that card. Nothing. I'll play this card. I can now re-roll the die. Ha ha. Everyone else said I got lucky getting that card and you didn't. It's just okay. The kids got a kick out of the, hey, hi. But they also were like, Dad, wait a minute. I got the 1 and the 2, and now you got, and the 3, and then you got the 4 and 5, and you won? I was like, yep. That's numbers. It's not that good of a game. It's going to die. That's Trap.
Okay. Last one I want to talk about, I think, obviously, is one I enjoyed if you watched our video marathon, but I haven't talked about it here on the podcast, and that's Concept. This is the party game of trying to get your teammates to guess a title or a subject based on this pictographic chart. And you're playing markers out on this big chart, and there's sections for colors, for the genre that you're looking for. You might be looking for a movie title or a historical figure. And you'll play these little plastic question marks and exclamation points and cubes to send people down different logical paths. So I may play a red question mark on a movie, and then I might try and put cubes on that clarification of what that movie is. But then I may go a different route with a different line of questioning, a different logical path, and use different colored cubes to match that path. And the challenge, of course, is using the pictograms that you have, because often you want to get a concept across, but you can't, they don't have a picture for that concept. And you have to somehow make that work based on, a sphere and a boat, and trying to figure out what that's supposed to mean. I really did enjoy it, but much like many have said, there's not a whole lot of game as far as scoring opportunities and that sort of thing. It's really more of an activity. and just sort of a fun icebreaker. But as such, it can be an easy jump in, jump out, groups of pretty much any size. I would so go for the larger playmat that you can get from Asmodee, just for the ability to play it in a larger table with more people watching. It's a great spectator game. I had a blast playing it. Concept.
It really is an excellent game. It's one of those games, the more I play, the more I like it. Space Yoghurt. All right, Eric,
I got to know about this.
I bet you don't know anything about this game,
I
right?
know nothing, but I want to know more.
Do you think it's a good game or bad game based on the name?
Based on the name, it's probably horrible.
Oh, he guessed it.
I'm kind of hungry.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. You have 3 pieces. You roll a die. Or you roll 2 dice and you're going to pick which of those pieces moves. You move at a certain number of spaces. What you land on is what happens. It might warp you all the way to the end. It might, if you land on someone else, they go back to the beginning. Seriously feels like a game from many years ago, and I'm surprised such a game exists. And I'm only mentioning it because the name is cool enough that you will probably stop and take a second look, and you should just keep walking. Has some cool pieces, though. And my kids got a kick out of it, but they were also 4 and 5. Wait, 6 and 7. Sorry. I know the ages of my kid, I promise.
Yeah, sure.
But Space Yoghurt, not a good game by any stretch of the imagination. All right, let's continue on.
3, 2, 1, go.
It's time for GameTek with Jeff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
On January 27th, a research team from Google announced that they had developed a computer AI that was able to defeat a professional Go player, the European champion Fan Hui, for the first time ever. Now, AI researchers had been predicting it would be 10 years or more before that feat was accomplished, but here we are. So, why is Go so much more difficult for a computer than chess? The world chess champion, Garry Kasparov, was defeated by IBM's Deep Blue 20 years ago in 1996. And computers have certainly advanced exponentially during that time. Why the delay? Is it just that chess is more popular than Go, so more people are working on it? Well, for those who are not familiar with it, the game Go is actually older than chess and goes back thousands of years. The rules are incredibly simple. On their turn, players simply place a stone of their color, black or white, on an open intersection of a 19 by 19 board. If this surrounds a group of opposing stones so that there are no free spaces next to them, those stones are captured. Play continues until both players pass their turn, and then you get 1 point for each empty space on the board surrounded by your stones, and 1 point for each stone you've captured. And that's basically it. Those are all the rules. And yet, Go is much, much more complex than chess in terms of the number of possible moves and positions. There are typically hundreds of possible moves in a Go game each turn, and maybe 20 to 30 in a chess game. Most artificial intelligence programs consist of 2 pieces: a tree search routine that looks at all possible positions from where the game is now, and an evaluator that can look at a position and figure out who is winning and by how much. The problem with this approach is that the number of positions the tree search needs to look at gets really big, really fast, and it gets even bigger, exponentially bigger, in Go versus chess. So in essence, the computer just cannot look ahead nearly as far in AlphaGo as it can in Deep Blue. So how did the researchers at Google get around this? They made their evaluation routines much, much smarter and created specific routines to do different jobs. They created 3 different neural networks. A neural network mirrors the way our brains work by starting with a set of virtual neurons that don't understand really anything about whatever it is they're trying to learn. Then in a learning phase, the network is shown something and what it represents. If you're teaching a neural network to analyze a photograph, you may show it a picture and tell it that a certain area is a dog. Then the network tries to find a dog in another picture, and you tell it whether it's right or wrong and what the right answer is. And then gradually it adjusts the way it is wired to do a better job at succeeding in the task. The teaching part of a neural network is key, but you need a good data set to train the network on. For AlphaGo, the team used the database at the KGS Go server, which has over 30 million positions from professional games. They trained AlphaGo to predict what move the professionals would make next. In the end, it was able to correctly predict the next move 57% of the time. Maybe that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's really an impressive achievement. Even professional Go players watching other professional games would probably not be as accurate. So this neural network was then further trained by playing against itself over another 30 million positions. Well, actually, it didn't really play against itself. It played against randomly selected older versions of itself to avoid a form of groupthink, where the network always plays a particular way so it gets into a rut. I thought that was pretty interesting. So, in the end, they had a neural network that was capable of playing Go really well, and this had absolutely no search at all. It just looked at the current position and decided on what it thought was the best move. Now, when it played against one of the top Go AIs called Pachi, AlphaGo won 80% of the games, even though it wasn't searching at all, and Pachi was looking at 100,000 positions before deciding on a move. Now, the Google team made 2 more neural networks to make the AI even smarter. Rollout did the same thing as the self-learning network, but it did it much, much faster, over 1,000 times faster. But it was not nearly as accurate, only predicting the next move half as often as its big brother. And the other was the value network. This one looked at a position and predicted the final score of the game. It was trained in the same way as the other networks, but it didn't care about what the actual next move was, just what the final score was for that game. The researchers then took all of those pieces and put them together into a Monte Carlo tree search. Basically, they wouldn't look at all the positions. They would use the fast rollout and value evaluations to basically roll a die and decide which positions to look at deeper with the slower but more powerful self-learning network. When they put all these pieces together, they had a program that defeated all the top Go AI programs 99.8% of the time, and European Go champion 5 games to 0. Now, the really interesting thing here is that these types of learning networks, with a little bit of search but really good position evaluation, is much closer to the way that we humans think. Deep Blue thought about chess in a radically different way than Kasparov did. So what's next for AlphaGo? In March, it will go up against the best Go player in the world, Lee Sedol, in a series of matches that we broadcast live over the internet. I'm not sure who to root for here, computers or humans. This is Jeff Engelstein with GameTek.
Welcome to Cult of the Old, where I discuss games we may have forgotten about, or games that failed miserably but still had some good mechanics in them.
He's Brian Counter, and everything he does is counterproductive.
This week I wanted to talk about Cloud 9, designed by Aaron Weisblum in 1999, rated rank 6.47 and 1319 on Board Game Geek. Cloud 9 is a simple family-style risk-taking game, kind of like Ink and Gold in the opposite direction, where you're going down into the cave and exploring dangerous stuff in Ink and Gold, and you can come out with nothing. In Cloud 9, you're going to higher clouds, and if you stay too long, you can come out with no points by crashing the balloon. The mechanics in Cloud 9 are pretty simple. The players are dealt a hand of cards in 4 different balloon colors, and perhaps a wild card, and they will get more cards as the game goes along. There's a balloon pilot, which rotates around the table, and players simply decide, like the Clash song, should I stay or should I go, and decide whether they want to stay in the balloon and take a risk, or jump out, assuming a safe landing in a parachute, and get some points along the way. If they wait too long and the balloon crashes, they will get no points. The longer a player waits, the higher the cloud, the more points, but the higher risk. Now, to see if the balloon crashes or not, the pilot rolls 2 dice, or more, as the balloon gets higher, and whatever is rolled in the dice, they have to discard that color card or cards, which signifies the balloon goes higher. If they cannot produce the colored balloons as rolled on the dice, the balloon just crashes, and anyone still inside gets no points. The dice are standard D6s with 2 blank sides, and the other 4 sides are the colors of the balloon cards. So technically speaking, if you rolled all blanks, you get a free ride and you don't have to produce any cards. But often that's not the case. Sometimes you have a handful of, say, 8 yellow cards and few of any other cards, and sometimes you have none of a single color. So you know when you're about to become pilot, you run that risk of crashing the balloon if that single color is rolled, if you have no color that matches that balloon. Now that's essentially it. Play continues around the table until someone gets 50 points. One part of the game I'm not real fond of is the wild cards. You see, you can spend a wild card to cancel any number of die rolls all in one swoop, such that if a player gets more than 1 wild card and they're in the balloon alone, they could pretty much ride it to the top without worry. And that's really cheesy. My understanding is earlier versions of the game forced you to use wild cards as soon as you got them, and I would suggest following that rule strand instead of the cheesiness of multiple wild cards pretty much winning you the game or putting you in an outstanding position to win the game. Even with that said, I can recommend this game. I learned this as a closer amongst my heavy Euro friends, but this is certainly for younger people, and if kids are intimidated by the dangers of something in Ink and Gold, this might be an easier segue into risk-taking, or if you have that risk-taking itch and you're kind of done with Ink and Gold because you've played it so much, this might be a worthwhile consideration. Now, I will say this game is hard to find out of print and somewhat unreasonably priced on eBay, so if you can get your hands on a copy, by all means go for it. I will say, I've been doing this segment for a number of years, and we all know not all older games are good, so I ask the listeners to afford me some latitude here on availability of some of these older games. If you had to, this game wouldn't be tremendously hard to reproduce on your own, you just wouldn't get the nice wooden components. But if you can find a copy, I would recommend this one, Cloud 9.
Tale of Outrage! A few days ago, I would never have imagined I would have a tale of gaming rage. After all, I was a polite person who knew the importance of respect and inclusion in gaming. I've lived in the D.C. area for about 4 months. As someone new to the area and not interested in the bar scene or the overpriced restaurant scene, board game meetups became my way to socialize when I wasn't doing my job in insurance. I have had a good time with many different groups and a friendly local gaming store in Gaithersburg. This time included a lot of social deduction games, even as I prefer games with more strategy. This past week, I decided to try a different meetup just outside of D.C. A friendly face I had played with before wanted to show a new game he just got, called New Salem. The game itself did not do much to distinguish itself of the gazillion other social deduction games, except adding drafting, which is not a favorite mechanic of mine, but I was still very game. Well, after the first round, I saw someone with 2 of the white cubes, which in this game can be used to purchase special abilities. I offered to join my cube to his to buy the confession ability, to look at someone's hidden identity. Admittedly, this offer could have been seen in bad faith, since I also had a black cube, which helps the hidden witches win, but I was good, if greedy. So, to my offer, the other player, who I shall call Nick Bottom from now on, responded with some very mean-spirited profanity. I was in shock. I had heard the occasional F-bomb during particular intense gaming sessions, but never in my life had such hateful words been directed at me. I was offended and not sure how to respond. Yet the event host, who was playing with us, said nothing. Well, I tried to play it off, and said Nick was a witch, and next turn I'll get another cube for myself and use the confession ability on Nick. Which is exactly what I did, and sure enough, he was honest. Well, I announced to the table my finding, trying to move forward with my emotions and the game. Well, the very next round, Nick bought a trial card. There are only 3 of them in the game, and to use them on a witch is worth 2 less black cubes come endgame. However, to use them on an honest pilgrim is 2 more black cubes, a swing of 4. Well, who but Nick grabbed a trial card and threw it at me, pretty much dooming our side. All those emotions I was trying to hold back came flowing out and slammed the table with my hand. Apparently, my hand slam had been more violent than I realized, and components across the board had shifted. I think I blabbed something about throwing the game and pointing out that I had cleared him. His only response was, he didn't trust me. Well, I continued playing out the game, and one of the real witches jumped out and bought the last trial card and placed it at Nick, because after all, I had cleared him. Sure enough, the witches had black cubes in surplus, and one of them won the game. The organizer then declared I had been the meaner player for my hand slam. Maybe he was right. But I left the table after some ill-spoken defenses and found some people to teach Sheriff of Nottingham to, and salvaged the afternoon with some pleasant bluffing and lying. Regardless, I do not think I will be returning to this particular group. Maybe Nick Bottom can be a fun person, but he brought out the worst in me.
I feel like he was trying to get on my good side there by saying Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah.
Playing to the crowd there. I have to say that if I'm not at a table and one person slaps the table and makes pieces move, I would probably also assume that that person was the problem This has been happening in child watching for years. One kid pokes the other kid, and finally the one kid punches him. Who gets in trouble? The puncher, not the poker.
Exactly.
Unless the parents see both things. So can't really get upset at the organizer in that regard. This also may be the first time I've ever heard of anyone getting mad in this particular game, New Salem.
It's designed to have that sort of confrontation.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, what do you think? Rage-worthy?
I don't necessarily think the reaction... I don't agree with the poster's reaction.
That's good. Well, Eric would... Have you ever seen Eric get mad in a game? He, doesn't hit the table. He doesn't do anything. He just sits there and looks at his cards.
Yeah.
And then he'll say something like, this game's kind of broken.
No,
means,
I will say that I'm not having fun.
Which means he's getting his butt kicked. Ha ha ha! I've seen this firsthand.
That is what happened in Cosmic when we most recently played it.
That is true. We were supposed to be making you
won.
like that game. Oh, well. I'll live with myself.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe you should see a psychologist.
Let's explore the psychology of board gaming with Dr. Alonso.
Hello, and welcome to the Psychology Board Gaming segment of the Dice Tower podcast. I'm Dr. Alonso, and today's topic is addiction in board gaming. Within the board gaming industry, we often hear the term acquisition disorder, which typically refers to someone feeling compelled to obtain board games at either a faster pace than they can play them, or in larger volumes than is playable. Finding reasons to purchase a game comes all too easily, and a continual stream of new releases end up on their wish list. Can people really become addicted to board gaming? Let's explore that in this segment. The concept of addiction is rooted in research related to drug and alcohol dependence. But because board gaming really isn't similar to substance abuse, let's look at non-substance related disorders included in the DSM-5. The term DSM stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and we're currently in the 5th edition. If we consider the section under gambling disorder, let's take a look at some of the diagnostic criteria and see how that matches with board gaming. It describes people being restless or irritable when they attempt to cut down on the behavior. They make unsuccessful, repeated efforts to control, cut back, or minimize their time spent in the activity. They're often preoccupied with the activity, or they have persistent or recurring thoughts of engaging in the said activity. You might rely on the activity when you feel distress, such as helpless, guilty, anxious, or depressed. When you lose, you may return to the activity in order to get even, or recover your losses. You lie to conceal the extent of your involvement with the activity. Your engagement in the activity minimizes or jeopardizes significant relationships, jobs, educational, or career opportunities. While some of these factors may be present in someone's life, it really is a combination of these factors playing out that determine if someone is suffering from a particular disorder. While there's no documentation for board gaming addiction, some of these descriptions may fit your experience from time to time. 2 other factors which play into addictions are tolerance and withdrawal. Let me define those for you. Tolerance is what happens when you become used to a particular substance or activity and you need to increase in intensity or frequency in order to maintain the same derived experience. And withdrawal are negative effects which occur when you discontinue the activity. In a way, tolerance might be seen in the board gamer who's first introduced to the hobby and starts off with a gateway game and then quickly ramps up into building quite a large collection and trying to consume every single moment of their free time with board gaming. And withdrawal may look like people becoming frustrated and irritable when they can't attend their regularly scheduled gaming sessions. Let's take into consideration some recent games. Star Wars X-Wing is really blowing up right now. With so many ships and so many options to build different squadrons, it would be very easy for someone just getting into the game to spend hundreds of dollars all at once in order to gain entry into this title. While it's not necessary to obtain everything released, this may activate the drive or need for someone to complete a collection very rapidly. Another consideration is a living card game titled Android Netrunner. This game produces regularly released content, typically at the frequency of one expansion per month. There are even services out there who will deliver the product to your door on a regular and predictable schedule. Now, I'm not saying everyone who's passionate about the hobby is experiencing a board gaming addiction. However, it's something to take into consideration. Check your own emotional reactivity to situations such as not being able to attend your regularly scheduled gaming group. Or how about a delay in the next anticipated expansion? Have you ever sold or gave away one of your cherished or prized board games? How about going for an extended period of time without playing and effectively regulating or managing your emotions? Engaging in the hobby of board gaming can be relaxing, can be rewarding, can be intellectually stimulating, can provide us with opportunities to socially interact with others. Let's just keep it recreational.
Yeah, I think I'm probably addicted. I get pretty whiny when I don't get to go to game night. Like if for some reason I'm working or we have family obligations on Sunday nights for a week or two, I go through some pretty strong withdrawal symptoms.
I don't know. I don't think for me it's as much wanting to go to game night as I like to get out. Like I wasn't able to go to game night this week because of other functions, and I was just like, all right, fine. But see, I'm around games all the time, so it's really difficult for me to say.
Right.
I know I've been addicted to computer games before, to very much my detriment in college. Well, anyhow. Hey, we often play tales that make people angry. If you get angry at this next tale, then you have no soul.
Exactly. Tales of Amazement. During the summer, I lead mission trips for high school students to serve the homeless in Atlanta. One of my favorite things we do is cook up a big helping of pancakes and sit down at one of the local soup kitchens and eat with people. We've found that more often than not, people are hungrier for conversation and interaction than they are for food, and it's amazing to sit and listen to the stories they have to tell. One hot summer day, we headed downtown with enough supplies to feed around 100 people. We had never fed that many before, but we always took more than we figured we needed. However, when we arrived at the soup kitchen, the parking lot was already packed with people. I don't know why that particular day was any different from all the other days, but I knew we would be cutting it close on having enough food. We headed inside, and the students started cooking and setting up. After about 30 minutes, we opened the doors for the people outside to come in. The parking lot had swelled with even more people, but the good news was that we still hadn't quite reached 100 people. Just in case, I sent a volunteer out to buy more pancake mix and supplies. The students started flying around. They were serving coffee, passing out plates of pancakes, and, more importantly, sitting down and talking with people. As time went by, more and more people were coming in to eat. We handed out the last stack of pancakes as a wave of 15 more people walked in. This was not good. I called the volunteer who had left 20 minutes ago. No answer. I walked up to the front of the room and got everyone's attention. I thanked them all for being there and explained the situation. I assured them that more food was on the way and we would be serving again shortly. A collective groan went through the room. Though the people there were homeless, many of them had jobs to get to or places to be. They came expecting to eat breakfast, and now there was none. I understood their frustration. I remembered when I had lived on the streets in downtown Atlanta. I thought about the times soup kitchens opened later than they said or didn't open at all. I remembered standing in a parking lot for hours to only be let down and have to find food somewhere else. My heart sunk. But then my phone rang. It was the volunteer. He had gotten lost but had found the grocery store and would be back in just a few minutes. That was good news, but we would still need time to cook. I needed something to help pass the time. One of the men who helps run the soup kitchen walked up, and I asked if he had any ideas. He brought out a big cardboard box and said, "These were donated a few days ago." I opened the box to find board games. Jenga, Connect 4, Battleship, and the like. I looked at the guy with a puzzled look. "You think this'll work?" I asked. "It's worth a shot," he said. I went back to the front of the room with the box. I got the people's attention once more and asked if anyone wanted to play a board game. There was a long, silent pause while they looked at me like I was a little bit crazy. But then, a man in the back of the room raised his hand. He said, "I bet there isn't a person in this room that can beat me at Battleship." A woman across the room chimed in, "Bring it on, chump!" She walked up to me and took the game. A table of people next to me asked for a box of Jenga, and a young man walked up to get Connect 4. Slowly but surely the box of games emptied, and the room was filled with games, laughter, trash talk, and the unique sound of Jenga blocks crashing to the table. A little while later, we started serving pancakes again, and everyone that walked in the door was fed. But then something strange happened. No one got up to leave. Normally, people eat, hang out, and talk for a little while, and then leave. But on that day, folks just kept playing games long after they were done eating. They were simple, mass-market games, but they had tapped into something that had been missing from the lives of the people in that room. Ever since that day, every time we go to that soup kitchen to serve pancakes, we make sure to have plenty of games with us. And I have to say, there are few better sights in this world than seeing people sharing a meal and playing a game together. It might just be pancakes and Jenga, but there is something special about getting people to the table. It takes people from all walks of life and shows them we're really not that different. All anyone really wants is someone to eat with and share stories with, someone to talk to and share life with, someone to make them not feel invisible. I'm not going to sit here and say that board games can solve homelessness or anything, but maybe they tap into the thing that does. Huzzah.
That's right. Say something bad about that one.
No arguments about that one.
I wish I was there to see this. It's cool.
It's a great idea.
It is cool. Alrighty. Well, let's stay on this cool kick and find the sweet spot.
Hi everybody, this is Glenn Flaherty, and I'm talking to you from the Sweet Spot, which is a little segment where we talk about games that hit a sweet spot, either in terms of time, gameplay, or how much money you have to spend if you want to get a new game. So today I want to talk about worker placement, and specifically my troubles getting Agricola to the table. At my local store, I think Agricola is around $70, and I think I've even seen Caverna at around $197, and totally worth it. However, a lot of people don't have that kind of dough to throw around on a weekly basis. Certainly, my wife, it's not her kind of game. Not too many of my friends are really into it, I think because it doesn't have a lot of interaction between players. And plus, it takes a little bit more time than some people are willing to put into it. Okay, so let's suppose you don't want to spend that much money, you don't want to spend that much time, so you want to make it more appealing to get people involved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a game, and bear with me because you've heard about it before. The game is called The Builders, okay? The Builders is so easy, it's so fast, it's so affordable that you really can't go wrong. It's probably about $15, probably less. It takes about 20 minutes to play, I'd say half an hour at most, and you are getting your workers, you're buying your buildings, you're deciding which buildings you got to get so you can get the most points in time. Do I want to spend my money on tools? Do I want to go for an expensive building? Do I want to get a type of worker? So you're kind of doing all these decisions. Now, there's another version of it called Antiquity, and Antiquity is really the same game, except it adds power-up powers. You can also get loans from the bank, and I think at some point you can buy slaves, but I really don't want to play a game that deals with that. You basically take these on, it gives you some money in the beginning, but you have to pay it back with interest, and you got to get rid of it before the other people finish the rounds, otherwise you have to pay a penalty. It makes it more complicated than it needs to be, honestly. If you're trying to get a game to the table that's under 20 minutes, you don't need all that complication. It's kind of like dealing with King of Tokyo and King of New York. King of Tokyo is awesome. King of New York adds complication, but is it really necessary? I don't think so. If you want simple, you go with this. You want complicated, you're going to go all out and get a super complicated game. Either go white or black, don't go gray. That's what I say. Another thing to really encourage you to get the game is that the guy who made it is Frederick Henry, and he's the guy who did the Timeline games, and he also did the Conan game that's coming out. So that speaks a lot to the quality. Anyway, I hope you enjoy that suggestion, and I'll be talking to you soon. Take care.
Several years ago, I had a regular party game crowd. We would get together on weekends and play my latest purchases and thrift finds. During the warm months, we would most often sit around a fire and play catchphrase. We had a friend at the time who was not known to be the brightest one among us, and she often made some hilarious comments we remembered long after the day was over. This particular day may have been her defining moment. She was on my team for a 4-player game of catchphrase. She received the device and began giving clues. "This is a mountain." I named a couple mountains, and she changed her clue. No, it's a volcano." Challenging, I thought, as I struggled to name one. She amended her clue again. "It's a volcano in another country." I struggled as the timer began to beat faster. Vesuvius? Edna? This might be the hardest question in this game. Finally, the timer buzzed. The other team attempted to steal, also incorrect. By this point, I was dying to know what the answer was. I grabbed the device and read the screen. Mount Rushmore. I am fairly certain we never finished that game, as we spent the next 20 minutes laughing.
This is where you're supposed to laugh. Okay. Yes. Guys, this is actually a category of story I want to hear more of. I want to hear more of funny stuff that people make, the things that are really funny. The problem with board gaming humor, though, is sometimes it's very, you had to be there.
Yeah.
And that's the case. There's some times where games will make me laugh so much because someone will do something in a game and you're like, I cannot believe that. And games have a snowballing effect on humor where someone will do something funny and then later on, you'll refer to that funny thing again, and it gets funnier and funnier as the game goes by. Now, in a situation like this, Eric, is it okay to laugh at this lady?
Yes.
What if this lady was 12?
Still, yes.
What if this lady bursts into tears after everyone laughs at her?
Well, then that would be not as funny.
Oh, no, that's not what I asked. I said, is it okay?
Well, you should stop at that point.
This situation has definitely happened in my life in different times throughout my life where we've been at a table. It's almost always a kid, right? Where they do something really funny. Everyone starts laughing, and they're laughing, and all of a sudden they start crying.
Yeah, yes.
I'm sure this has happened in your life before.
Yes. Oh, my younger son has done this a couple of times. He'll do something adorable, and we're laughing just at the situation, and he gets upset because he thinks we're making fun of him, and he didn't intend to do something funny.
Right. Okay, so we agree on that. But what if someone makes a boneheaded move in a game? Is it okay to laugh then?
Well, case in point, our marathon, our friend Jason just did a Leroy Jenkins in Zombicide and plowed his way into a room and then got destroyed. And I laughed quite a bit at that particular move, and a few people online were not very happy with the ribbing that he was getting. But I think he deserved it.
This is actually something I'd be very intrigued because I think this is a good discussion point, and I like to hear people's maybe something in the forum about this because it's kind of an interesting thing. When does the laughing become too mean? Because, if I do something in a game and I'm like, everyone's laughing, like, yeah, you're right. But there's also times you're like, yeah, you're right, now shut up.
Yeah, I guess part of it was that we were playing a co-op game, and yeah, great job, but it's a teammate sort of thing. Yeah, great job, buddy. But when you're doing a competitive game, it becomes a little mocking. Yeah, great move, buddy. Thanks for handing me the victory.
Right. When is it appropriate to laugh? I mean, now part of this is going to be friends, right? And friends will laugh at each other and have a good time and laugh, and they'll make fun of each other. And the problem with that, as we have found out so dearly on the Dice Tower, is that when you do that sort of thing publicly, and to the outsider, it makes it look like you're kind of mean towards each other.
Mm.
And in reality, that's not really the case, but it's because you're friends, you kind of know where each other's boundaries are and what you can do to make fun of people. I mean, whenever I go somewhere, like whenever I go to church, I've always quickly become the public whipping boy. And I'm cool with that. Hey, make a joke about Tom. Here comes the guy who doesn't know how to stop having kids. Ha, 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 ha. Or wherever I am, right? And I'm cool with that. Usually. But there are a couple things that you could say to me that I'm like, that's not funny. They're just a couple things, but for the most part, but my friends will know what those things are, right? Because they probably found out the hard way.
Yeah.
Or what? I mean, everyone has that sort of things. There are some friends where I can laugh at them, but if they're losing, I'm not laughing at all.
Mm-hmm.
There are friends I can laugh at unless I know that today was not a very good day for them at home.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. It's an interesting situation. But when you're playing with people you don't know at all, what do you do then?
Right. Well, you hold back. I mean, this is sort of the trash talk situation. Until you know the vibe of the room, you sort of have to play it straight.
Yeah.
Unless people have come specifically to play with you, and they're expecting a certain amount of ridiculousness. Tom?
I don't know. That is, I mean, I get that, but I've certainly played in situations before where I felt like, oh, this one person at the table, this isn't the kind of mockery they're used to. And we got to be really careful in that regard. And I've often found that sometimes the whole vibe of a table can be messed up, especially when a kid might jump in. And we want to encourage kids to play. And everyone's trash talking and laughing at each other. And the kid, you're like, oh, I can't really do the same thing to them. In your face, little Sally. All right. Well, let's keep moving on.
It's a new segment with a little bit of history.
Every game has a story, and this is one of them. Presenting Biography of a Game with your host, Professor Scott Rogers. This time I want to talk about one of my favorite games, Betrayal at House on the Hill. Published in 2004 by Hasbro under the Avalon Hill label, Betrayal at House on the Hill is a horror-themed strategy game in which 3 to 6 players explore a haunted house until one of the players becomes a traitor and tries to kill the others. Its designer, literature professor Bruce Glasgow, describes the game as a role-playing game that doesn't need a dungeon master. Glasgow was inspired by classic Vincent Price horror movies and the 1985 game Chill, Blackmorn Manor. In Blackmorn Manor, players also lay out tiles to create a haunted house as they seek weapons that help or destroy the house's evil master. He changed the design so that any player could be the traitor, keeping everyone on edge until the haunt is finally revealed. Glasgow added upper and lower levels to his design, citing, "Who ever heard of a haunted ranch house?" In his original design, the house had 6 floors, including a tower and a sub-basement. This results in a haunted house that sprawls all over the table. Glasgow says, since it's a haunted house, its layout doesn't need to make sense. The game features 50 haunt scenarios, from an undead bride seeking her groom, to a demon bat invasion, to the house itself coming alive and attacking the players. You can play this game many times over and never get the same ending. More fan-created haunts can be found online at sites like BoardGameGeek. The game was purchased by Avalon Hill in 1995, but the company went out of business before the game could be published. When Hasbro bought Avalon Hill in 1998, they considered first publishing House on the Hill through Parker Brothers and added the word betrayal to the game's title, thinking it would be the first in a series such as Betrayal at Ice Station Zero or Betrayal in Space. Those plans sadly never materialized. This is when designer Rob Daviau worked on the game. Daviau changed the game's dice from 8-siders to 6-siders, streamlined the game's combat system, and redesigned many of the haunts. The game was finally published in 2004, featuring its distinctive orange box and cover artwork by Chris Muller and card art by Justine Anderson. The game won the Origins Gamer's Choice Award that year. Betrayal at House on the Hill was reprinted in 2010 with a new spooky green cover by Shelley Wan and featured many new improvements. The item and creature tokens were redesigned to help players find them more easily during gameplay. 6 new item cards were added, as were 8 new haunts, 4 of which were actually created by fans of the game. Despite all of these additions, production issues spoiled the game's re-release for many players. An underground lake tile was incorrectly labeled as an upper floor tile, and the clips for the character cards didn't fit and would slide off, making tracking stats an exercise in frustration. A reprinting of the second edition fixed the tile error, and you can find replacement clips at the 3D printer site Shapeways. Betrayal at House on the Hill is still printed today, and its influence can be felt in any storytelling game with a traitor mechanic, such as Battlestar Galactica and The Dead of Winter. The game continues to be a classic of thematic storytelling, and a great game to bring out anytime you feel the need to explore a haunted house. Next time, we'll learn about that classic Space Empire building game, Cosmic Encounter.
Until next time, this has been Biography of a Game with Professor Scott Rogers.
It's time for the Dice Tower's Question of the Week, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., in which our team of gaming experts answers one of your questions, thus increasing the odds that someone will get it right. This week's question: if you could only play one game for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Hey everyone, Tim Jeanette the Middle Meeple here, and for me this question's easy. I'm going with War Machine. It's a miniatures game, and I've played miniatures games for a long time. I've played this since 2004, and for many years it was the only thing I was playing, so it's kind of appropriate for this question, but you have a huge hobby behind these type of games where you've got the painting of the miniatures, you've got the creation of the terrain, and the strategizing and planning your army builds and stuff. There's just so much you can do before you even have an opponent in front of you that I feel like you wouldn't get bored as easily or as quickly. So anyway, that's my pick, War Machine.
Hi, Greg Schlosser here, talking about the one game I could play for the rest of my life, but only that one game. Meaning I could play nothing else. Wow, what a tough scenario. First, I'm not sure I could survive just playing one game only, especially if I had the knowledge that there were more games out there and I just couldn't play them. But if I had to pick one, and only one, I guess I have no choice but to go with my all-time favorite game, which is El Grande by Wolfgang Kramer. What a wonderful game. Area control game. Different powers, different decisions to make. Just a wonderful mixture of all kinds of mechanisms that I thoroughly enjoy. So my one and only game, El Grande. Thanks for listening.
Hello, my friends of the Game Boy Geek here. If I could only play one game the rest of my life, it would have to be Mr. Jack in New York. I've played this game over 250 times, and it never gets old. It feels fresh every time. Even though the game starts in the same spot, the strategies and the layers of this game continue to reveal themselves after this many plays, because everybody has, it's sort of an abstracted, puzzly game, but there's special abilities, and there's bluffing, and double bluffing, and deduction. Man, I just cannot get enough of this game. I could play this thing forever.
Tony and Marty, rolling dice and taking names, and the game that I would only play with for the rest of my life if I had to would be Ticket to Ride plus all its map packs. I can't just do Ticket to Ride. I'm going to need everything involved with that. Love that game. I know it's just one of those entry games, but for me, Marty, it's the game that I could always play again and again and again. What about you?
Oh, it's easy. It's going to be Terra Mystica. And the reason why, I just love that Euro game. It's a tough game to try to figure out, but what's really unique about it is that there's so many factions available now, and each faction plays totally different. It would take a very long time in order to learn how to play each faction correctly. So that's a game I could play with for many, many years before I'd ever really got good at it.
Hi guys, this is Glenn Flaherty from the Sweet Spot, and the game I'd play for the rest of my life is Elder Signs with the Unseen Forces and Gates of Arkham expansions. That's because you can play solo or in groups of up to 8. There's a lot of variety. You can work together, so there's good interaction. There are a lot of great decisions about mitigating your circumstances, and dice rolling is involved, so if you lose, you can't take it too personally. That's Elder Signs. Check it out.
This is Brian from Cult of the Old. Forcing you into one game here emphatically changes the choices, because there are some otherwise excellent games that I like in small doses that are some of my favorites, but I can't imagine playing just that one. Replayability, variety, and those kinds of things. My first two thoughts here were Cosmic Encounter and Lords of Vegas, and even Magic. But Cosmic Encounter took a hit when I played with a friend's adolescent male brains who were just out to get each other and having fun till 3 in the morning. So I'm going to have to go something with some real longevity for me personally, and that would be Thunderstone Advance, but must be played with the Epic variant. A seemingly endless stream of cards, I do like deck building, and it has a slight theme. I can imagine playing that for a long time. I'd love it if there was an ulterior version in space, but for now, Epic Thunderstone Advance.
Yeah, I think I would probably implode. But since I have to choose something, I'm tempted to even say 504, even though I still haven't played it. That would give me lots of possibilities. You know what? I think I have to go with Dominion. Maybe Power Grid. I could happily play Merchant of Venus for a long, long time, but I think for sheer variety and for ease of play, I could probably convince a lot of people to play Dominion with me. Because I have to think about potential playmates as well. If I'm only playing this one game, I have to go for a game that has broader appeal so I can still play with a lot of people. So I'm going to go with Dominion with its full expansion set.
I'll go with Cosmic Encounter because that's the easy choice, and I don't understand why everyone would not pick their favorite game. Unless, of course, you want sheer variety, then maybe I would say Magic the Gathering. Or Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, there you go. And then within Dungeons and Dragons, they play all sorts of other games.
No, that's cheating.
No. Okay, so in the tavern, there's a closet full of games. And, in order to fully role-play this, we have to actually bring out the Terra Mystica set.
I challenge the orc to a duel using Ticket to Ride. Yeah, but seriously, without Eric's nonsensical doing his Inception stuff again, I think that a role-playing game, if you're going to only play one game for the rest of your life, a role-playing game might not be a bad choice. Because that literally is open-ended. It's a world that you can be in forever.
Sure.
So the board game may be something similar on that spot. But I'm just to say my favorite game because that's what I put this question in here because we get asked this question all the time. Like, if you could only rescue 10 games from a fire, if you were stranded on a desert island. Like, but shouldn't that just be your favorite games? Otherwise, they wouldn't be your favorite.
Right.
So I think in this situation, we have proven that one of the two co-hosts of the Dice Tower is not a hypocrite.
Interesting.
About their favorite game.
I mean, you want to? I could go further into this discussion of why Merchant of Venus probably wouldn't work forever. But I could be happy with that if you force me to it.
That's
I would have
all I needed to hear, Eric.
Lovely time.
I believe that's too late, Eric.
But I think I could play. I could play with Z and Sam with Dominion.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they would love that.
Well, we've already established that they don't want to play Merchant with me ever again.
I don't believe that was the game's fault.
Oh, wait, what?
Wait, I'm sorry. What I meant to say, Eric, was I don't think that was your fault.
Oh.
That reminds me. I this one time was just a great moment. We played a game. It was Airlines Europe. No, it wasn't Airlines Europe. It was the other airplane game from What's a Plague?
Watzelpogue? Jet Set.
Jet Set. We played Jet Set, and we went over it. We played it. And I said, hey, so what did everyone think? And everyone went on the table. One guy said, well, I didn't really enjoy it, but it's not the game's fault. And then he left. And we're like, and I was thinking the same thing I was just talking about before with the humor. Like, oh, did I go too far? I was trash talking like I always do. Should I not have done that? And later on, I confronted him about it. I asked him, and he's like, oh, no, what I meant was it was my first time playing this game, and so I didn't get all the strategies, and so that kind of detracted from my enjoyment.
Right.
It's like, oh, yeah, that would probably have been better clarification to say that. But it was just funny because he said that, then he had to go, and we all were just like, oh. And everyone assumed, that it was, well, me. But I don't know. But it was a lot of fun. Now, hey, we've come to the end of a perfect day.
A perfect day.
Or a perfect episode. I don't know. Have we ever done a perfect episode? Has there been an episode when we were done with it, you were like, boom, that was the episode?
That was the one. Yes, but I can't remember what it was.
I know we've done a couple when we're done, I'm like, yeah. And then I've done a couple, I'm like, moving on to the next episode.
Let's just get that one behind us.
That's what Eric thinks about those end of the year episodes. Yeah. Which we will be changing, folks. You're going to hear a different kind of end of the year episode this year.
They'll all be musicals.
Yeah.
Everyone has to give their opinion in verse.
Haikus.
Yes. Haiku reviews.
All right. Anyway, folks, we're so glad. Tell us what you think about our show. Go to our forums. You can find them on our website. There's lots of other podcasts, too. Eric mentions them at the end of each show, but I know some of you turn off as soon as the music hits. Don't do that. There are lots of other podcasts out there, lots of great ones. And if you are like, I wish Dice Tower would be like 3 or 4 times a week, we're never going to do that.
No.
But you can find lots of podcasts. You can fill up pretty much every day of the week. You can listen to a different podcast. Or if nothing else, you can watch the videos till you go blue in the face, because that you can watch every day of the week. So anyway, until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thank you for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 446, was recorded on February 11th, 2016. Coming up next week, it's our top 10 games for 6 players. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. If a catastrophic event has turned your game upside down, find out how we can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with assistance from Jason Thompson, Itay Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Mooring for our 2 boats is provided by Paradox. Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at coolstuffinc.com. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network, including Boards and Swords, Start Space, the Plaid Hat Podcast, the Long View, the Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast, and Board Game University. Find out more at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming.
How about limericks?
Limericks could be dangerous.
There once was a board game that was fun. That's too many syllables already.
Limericks, well, yeah, okay.
There was no theme at all. I threw it in the hall. And then we went to Nantucket.
It's perfect.
That's edgy humor, Eric.
Yeah.